Sticks and stones may break my bones, but a runny nose will always hurt me. Welcome to the Blockbusters and Birdwalks podcast. I am the curator, Garrett Chaffin-Quiray. Today we have a conversation with a friend, Ed Rosa.
That's me. Hi. My filmmaking partner and I have a YouTube channel, Toothless Richard Productions, where you can see a number of our short films.
The Blair Witch Project was a sensation at the Sundance Film Festival. Brian Raftery covers this extensively in his book, Best Movie Year Ever, and I'll leave it to his discussion to go into the great depth of what that meant and means to the Y2K experience. But it is also to say that the long reputation of that Sundance Film Festival took 6 months of brewing time before the movie was finally released to general theaters in July. I went to go see it in September, after I'd spent the summer listening to virtually everybody around me in the workplace, waiting in line for coffee, and at the time I was in New York, strap hanging in the subways. Everybody was chattering.
Okay.
Blair Witch, Blair Witch, Blair Witch. I went to the Kew Gardens Cinema, I think was its name. Made the missus crawl out, which was not a difficult thing. In September, it's quite hot. We had no air conditioning. So this was a chance to get that air conditioning break.
Yeah.
We go to the show, and barely 90 minutes later, when it's done, we've watched our trailers and all the rest, we leave bleary-eyed in the afternoon sun. And I think to myself, I've got to be crazy because this is not good. It's so not good that I'm kind of embarrassed that I've brought my new wife to see this movie.
But you were interested because the word of mouth you had heard on it, that people were saying it was good, and so you were like, had you seen the trailer?
I don't recall spending a lot of time hitting the web on that point because I didn't have broadband.
Yeah, it's pretty early on.
I don't remember there being a giant TV campaign. I just remember people saying, it's good, it's good, it's good. And while I get swept along in that like anybody will, seasonally when important things happen, and this was important, I think it had already become this hugely unexpected blockbuster. I just mean to say that my basic remark then was it's totally disappointing. Not worth this cultural effort.
All right, so I had seen the original trailer, like the original teaser, where you just see the text comes up and says like in, blah, blah, these 3 students went out to do this documentary and never came back. And like a year later, their footage was found. And then it's just a black screen, and then Heather is beginning her monologue about apologizing to parents, and then we get that, pretty infamous shot of her eyes filming herself sitting in the tent.
I just want to apologize to Mike's mom, and Josh's mom, and my mom. And I'm sorry to everyone. I was very naive.
After watching that trailer, I was like, there's no other movie I am more curious about or want to see more than this. Foolishly, I was like, wait, is this true? Now, because I sort of lamented, like, my inability to see Psycho in a world where what happens in the conclusion of the film is not, like, so part of, like, the pop cultural, like, lexicon. I already know that Norman Bates is his mom. You know what I mean? Like, but that reveal in the movie is amazing. So I've always been bummed that I could never have seen Psycho without prior knowledge of that, right? When this happened, because the internet was, not necessarily its infancy, but I mean, it's still pretty young.
Within 10 years of its birth in popular America.
I'm still using like web crawler. You know what I mean? Or Netscape.
Yeah.
Basically,
too,
right? Or, if I want porno, I'm on MIRC, right? And even though I had the internet, it wasn't like it is today. And so I was like, wow, is this real? Is this real? And I had not been aware that already for like a year, they had already kind of set up some stuff online. All this is to say, I at this point am like, is this real or what? And then when the film opened, it opened small first, as I recall, because I had to go down to the landmark Hillcrest to see this. But I was there opening night. Tons of people thought it was real.
Right.
There's been a handful of times I've been to a theater. I've had a theatrical experience with movies that just absolutely stick out in my mind. They're like absolutely the most amazing experiences I've ever had in a theater. Teenage Mother at the New Beverly at like 4 o'clock in the morning. unforgettable. The first time I saw the Stunt Rock trailer at BNat 7 and the place, the Alamo Draft House, the Star Wars Special Editions, going to see The Empire Strikes Back at the long gone Man Cinema 21 down in Hotel Circle, which seated over 1,000 people and had that gigantic screen, right? This was one of those screenings. I've never heard like a theater more quiet in parts. I've never heard like more honest seeming emotional responses to a movie, like the gasps, and some people like screamed at certain points because everyone thought what they were watching was like a documentary. But at that time, I was actually a little disappointed with it because, some of the complaints about like The Witch, the Robert Eggers film, like, people who are not thoughtful will be like, oh, nothing happens. Oh, that movie sucks. Nothing happens in it. The entire film, everything is kind of just like hinted at. You see sort of very little. There isn't some giant like culmination where it's like, oh my God, the Blair Witch or anything at the end, right?
And it's a very abrupt conclusion, which works to its benefit.
Right. So at first I was like a little disillusioned with it, but then I revisited it many years later, and my opinion of the film has improved.
I offend a lot of my friends with the following statement whenever I watch a movie. It's too long.
Well, sometimes it is.
Well, this movie is only 81 minutes, all the way through the bitterness of its trademark and its MPAA seal at the very end. Yeah. But it should probably barely be an hour long.
See, I actually found myself this time going like, no, I feel like this is the right length.
Okay.
And I guess according to the trivia, the original cut was like 2.5 hours.
It'd be way too much for this guy.
But I also kind of understand because this whole thing is so sort of unorthodox, like in the way it was made. I mean, in terms of like conventional filmmaking,
right?
What they were having their actors do, the way they're shooting it, the way they kind of are writing it, like all the improvisation. It's borderline experimental.
There are things that do impress me, especially now that I'm involved in education. I'm much more excited about creative endeavors among the young. The gist is we're watching three people. Heather Donahue playing a version of herself, Joshua Leonard playing a version of himself, and Michael Williams playing a vision of himself. They are three young filmmakers. This is Heather's project. She wants to do a documentary of this weird mythology and this folkloric account of various bad things that have happened, which are grouped under the header of the Blair Witch. She wants to go off in the woods and discover these places that were referred to in various of the accounts she's read about or been told. And it's very earnest, these filmmakers.
Right.
They believe they're in for not even a long weekend. I think it kicks off on a Saturday morning. They intend to be home by Sunday night because they got to return the equipment they've borrowed from one of their employers. It all blows up. They get terribly lost, and they seem to be preyed upon by some dark forces, which we never see. We only hear ideas of what might be out there. And along the way, they have markers that suggest that there are supernatural forces afoot. Ghosts might be around them, maybe cannibals, funny animals. We're not sure, and the movie never clarifies any of this. It just adds up to the horror that they've parked themselves into the middle of the Blair Witch experience, thus the Blair Witch Project. Now, technically, the whole movie is defined by 2 points of view. One of the three principals holding a color camcorder or a black and white non-sync sound 16-millimeter camera. There is a third track of sound, the DAT system, the DAT.
Right, the digital audio tape.
That's right.
DAT recorder.
Which was pretty high in technology.
Oh, yeah.
It's required. That's the thing they're worried about, getting back on time, probably to avoid overage charges and not get fired. So that's how this all works. The meat and potatoes of the movie never, ever get away from those two restricted points of view. I found the movie bracingly fun for about 30, 35 minutes. Let's get this project started, everybody.
Right.
Heather has a huge amount of cheerleading energy. She's clearly the bulldozer. She's totally in control. These dudes are like, I'm going to hitch myself to this star because it's going places. I'm going to get a credit. It'll be a chance to make myself shine. And I'm going to go get drunk and stoned in the woods. What could go wrong?
Well, and I felt she was a very sort of authentic sort of archetype.
I've met her before.
Totally. Yeah. Especially of this time.
Yeah. And because they restrict the point of view to those two different camera vantages, it means the three principals are constantly handing back and forth the cameras. As bad things befall them, as the confusion weighs in, as their weekend getaway turns into more than that, those two devices and the DAT become really important to measuring all of these confessional things they start to offer as they break down, as they lose all of their food, as their things are rifled through by some spiritual thing out in the woods, until finally they find what is literally a haunted house. And we presume, by the way the movie concludes, that they're all dispatched by whatever the Blair Witch really is. It looks pretty blunt. And because there's a lot of out-of-focus stuff, there's a lot of material shot at night with the light attached to the camera, which blasts everything in too much light. And then suddenly 3 feet out, you can't see anything. So there's a way that's really truthy because, well, if you're our age, you've made home movies thinking, oh, this will be a great showpiece of that birthday party, and it's all doggerel. You can't see anything. You can hardly hear anything. The movie showcases all of that stuff. Now, being in my 50s, thinking about my young self in my 20s when I first saw it, I have a lot more slack I'll cut for the way the movie's intelligence works against the fact it had absolutely no money behind it. Reports are that this movie could have cost as little as $35,000, which was probably all DAT and 16 millimeter.
Oh,
and maybe a hotel room.
Actually, according to the IMDb trivia, the most expensive portion of the film is where they're talking about Gilligan's Island, because they had to pay for the rights because they sing the Gilligan's Island theme song. That was the most expensive. They even returned the camcorder to Circuit City, according to the trivia, at the conclusion of filming to save money.
And I knew people even earlier who did that trick. They would go to Circuit City. That was the target.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could open the line of credit with no real definable income, could still get a $2 or $3 grand credit line, which was enough. If 2 or 3 of you went together, somebody could get the DAT, somebody could get the camera, somebody could get all the stuff you'd use. You wouldn't return the tapes because you need those, but you get your money back on all the rest, and you would cobble together your reel and try to go make it in the world. The idea that you're going to go make a movie that would eventually earn close to $250 million due to a careful marketing campaign that touched the likes of you, Ed Rosa, off in your distant life, whatever you were involved with in 1998, 1999, you and the millions like you, to go to the show and be taken away by, am I watching a snuff film? Involving supernatural stuff. Or is this a big put on? The point is, I don't really care. I kind of enjoy myself. I like the ride. My problem then and now starts at about 45 minutes in, when they're off in the woods and things start to go wrong. And they just start cursing at each other for minutes on end. You're an asshole. You're a bitch. Fuck you. Where's my fucking smokes? Fuck. It's like I'm listening to a Marine platoon from Pendleton at a bar when they've had too much to drink and they're angry with their gunnery sergeant. It's too much for my little ears. And it doesn't really go anywhere. They just keep literally dealing with a circle they're walking, which is one of the problems. They can't seem to negotiate orbital directions. There's no north, south, east, west in their world. They're just kind of trapped in Blair Witch land. That hits me wrong, but I was captivated by the conclusion the way that I wasn't back in the 90s. I do think its decision to have them wander around this multi-story, goofed up old house where Josh, who's disappeared for the last 10 minutes of the movie, he's been kidnapped, or he's been killed, or he escaped, or he's died in the lichen, or whatever's out there in the forest. You hear him again. Oh, Josh. And they're clearly freaked out. We got to find our friend. Which leads them right into the abattoir where they're killed. And the camera takes the shock and falls to earth. I mean, that's very good. And then it just goes to black and gives you credits with creepy, creepy music. The other standout important thing is there are twin filmmakers, buddies, who I think met in a Florida school where they were in classes together, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sánchez, who here are the writer, director, and editor. I emphasize that because they have envisioned this project and then they deciphered it for the rest of us. It's a very coherent auteur statement. And there was really no budget oversight. They didn't have to spend other people's money. Really, no matter how you slice this, until they began to market the thing. And then it was jumped to get it sent out in the world to find an Ed Rosa to go watch it some months later. This means we're looking at a very, very specific point of view from a creative personality, and it's a dual personality. That's unusual, have buddies. So I still don't like the movie, but I like what it represents. I like that it puts on the page the value of people just trying something. You use the word experimental. I think that's exactly right. And that experiment yielded the world of reality television, but also the knockoff sort of Blair Witch Project-based movies.
The lamentable found footage subgenre, which this... I can't think of, there might be some examples. I can't think of any other found footage films that existed prior to this one. But the originator is still great.
There was a term that I encountered in my arts training, permission. But when you see a landmark sort of creative achievement, whatever your discipline might be, it gives you permission to behave like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe you didn't even know that was possible. And this movie gave a lot of up-and-coming artists in movies and business people permission to do something they hadn't imagined was possible. It mixes media. You can tell when you're looking at 16, and it looks good.
Yeah.
It's just that it's black and white.
Right.
You can see that you're looking at video because it's in color, but it's crummy.
Yeah. Because video is.
Time sucked. Yeah. And generally, we don't do that kind of mashup. It's irritating. But when the conception of the entire narrative requires it, you're going to accept an awful lot. I place that in front of you also to say that there were a couple of other horror-esque movies in the same season that I was drawn to. Well, most people were drawn to. The Sixth Sense was released the next month.
Man, The Sixth Sense's real estate has absolutely cratered for me.
Has it?
I walked out of that movie going, oh, that was really good.
That was my reaction.
Now it's terrible. In my mind, when I watch it, the gimmick that blows your mind the first time you see it is the worst thing about the film. There's a scene in that movie where Haley Joel Osment and Toni Collette are like sitting in a car, and he's talking about seeing dead people, and she's losing her shit because her son is going crazy.
Right.
That's way more interesting.
There's an even more recent movie called The Babadook.
Which I have not seen yet.
I strongly recommend.
I've been meaning to. I know it's been on like people's like top horror, modern horror.
But it takes that exact dynamic of a mother who's watching her unhinged child behave in an unhinged way, which is making her unhinged, but they're walking separate paths with the same problem between them, the Babadook.
Right.
Or in the case of Sixth Sense, the dead people.
The dead people, right.
She's intensely believing he's true or he's completely crazy. Either way, she can't cope.
I just felt like we had just passed over the most interesting thing about The Sixth Sense because it's just, oh, no, he's really seeing dead people.
I saw The Sixth Sense before I saw this movie, The Blair Witch Project, probably a month separation.
Okay.
My appetite for a horror movie in the summer of 99 was set up by that. And two other titles, which also came out in July. One, Summer of Sam by Spike Lee. I'm a sucker for his work.
Well, you know what?
I'm a sucker for New York stories. And I'm a sucker for things that are exactly as old as the story as I am. It's a 73 story.
Yeah. I actually need to revisit that because that was the first Spike Lee film I ever saw.
Oh, my God.
And I thought it was so dumb. I thought it was so dumb.
Yeah.
But now that I'm far more acquainted with Spike Lee and really enjoy his peccadillos and idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
I need to revisit that because I probably will have a much different opinion on it now. But yeah, I was tremendously disappointed.
And I saw that in New York City with an all New York audience that was pretty split between those who were like, Spike's brought us another.
Right.
And the other, there was a guy literally just going through a six pack who kicked over his whole can set. These empties, leaving there like, what the hell was that? Drunk and stumbling. And it was kind of outstanding. But it's a horror movie about how this metropole of 8 million people really felt that they were being preyed upon by a single unhinged individual.
Yeah.
Unhinged is the word of the day. So that was July for me. The other, which was just a goofy little silly kind of a Jaws-ish ripoff, Lake Placid, with Betty White as a woman who grooms an alligator out at Lake Placid.
Man.
It's a complete escape, dumb movie, but I enjoy it.
See, I actually have not seen Lake Placid either, but yeah, you're making me want to watch it.
Yeah, and that was July. So
okay.
That's in my rear view. Summer of Sam's in my rear view. The Sixth Sense is in my rear view. And then I get this big head of steam. You're going to love it, Garrett. And then I don't. The Blair Witch Project.
God send your grace on thee.
Did you ever see The Descent?
No.
The guy that made Dog Soldiers.
Yeah,
made it.
I love that movie. I have not seen Descent.
Okay, so in that movie, what's scary is there's cave creatures. These chicks are all going spelunking, and there's cave creatures trying to eat them. But what's really scary about this movie is just the spelunking. Being trapped in tiny places, not knowing if they can squeeze through openings, if they're going to run out of air, where the hell they are, how they're going to get out. And then you add the cave creatures on top of that. I am never going spelunking in my life. I was already confident in that before I saw The Descent.
Yeah.
Afterwards, it's double confirmed. I will never, I don't care how many caves there are, I'll never go in one ever. With Blair Witch, it's kind of similar in that they're following, the sort of Hitchcock logic, right? It's not what you show them that's scary. It's what you don't show them, right?
You have to imagine.
Right, and we're getting just these little, these little tastes, these little tidbits, right? Josh's teeth, right? But the reality of being lost in the woods
is something that
that's scary because that's real,
and that could easily happen.
For example, there's the part in the film towards the end where they wind up they walk up on like a tree that they've already crossed, and they realize they're walking in circles. But that's the kind of thing that actually will happen to people when they're sort of lost in the wilderness, right? Or are they being manipulated by these supernatural forces?
Right.
Because also, as they're going through the forest, they keep finding themselves in the same spot, but then at the end, they discover this house.
Why didn't they see it earlier?
Right.
In full daylight.
Right.
When they had the opportunity.
It's already scary, the idea that you would be lost. Them getting upset with each other and panicking and not knowing what to do, kicking the map into the river. That's scarier than the Blair Witch hovering over them.
This movie affirms for me, Garrett should not camp.
I actually was fairly impressed by the performers in this because they weren't given much, but also they shot the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
None of these people are cinematographers.
Right.
According to IMDb trivia, Josh had some time. It took him some time to get used to focusing like the 16 millimeter.
And you can see it.
Right. For example, the shot from the original trailer of Heather Donahue in the tent, paralyzed by fear, apologizing to that shot is iconic now.
Yeah.
That's hers.
Right.
That's a great shot.
And, of course, then Scary Movie rips it off, and the runny nose with the crying eye.
Right.
The confession has been reused and reused. It's become quite funny.
It's like a meme.
It's also a pretty serious bit of revelation.
Right.
Because she really does have to cry, She does have snot bubbling out of her nose.
She's going through it, and she's totally in earnest, right?
Right, and at that point, all of the difficulty of managing and thinking about that personality up to now, which is by then 75 minutes of the movie, she's not been a very likable person. But she peels back those layers, begins to cry, and comes unglued because she knows that she's right at the end of the mortal coil. Is this going to work out or not? Something's hunting me.
Yeah.
That's a scary feeling.
Yeah.
Every amateur can occasionally touch on the greatness of what they're trying to learn. I point that out because they're smart people. They're educated in images, and they have a few moments where they're dialoguing over what they're up to.
I see why you like this video camera so much.
You do?
It's not quite reality.
Reality says we gotta move.
No, but it's totally like a filtered reality, man. It's like you can pretend everything's not quite the way it is.
My dad recently, we had his birthday party because he's a million years old, and it was to celebrate one of his million-year achievements. So what I did, I went through their old records, and I found a bunch of like his old records from like the 50s and 60s, and I digitized them. So for his birthday, I played like his old music like all day. Right. It was awesome because I had a job to do. It's a tremendous relief if I'm in social situations to be able to be the DJ or to have a job like that. Him talking about like Heather's filtered reality, that rang super true to me because like that little device.
Takes the emotional pressure off of your fear.
Exactly. Because now it's like, oh, well, I'm here to shoot this. So I'm not actually engaged in it in the way that would make me scared.
Sure, but I've got a project.
Right.
It's the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
I just wanna go back to 1999. Take a ride to my own neighborhood. I'm gonna party like it's 1999.
1999, best movie year ever?
I guess the jury's still out.
Boop boobity doo.